to plan your day. The mountains are calling you out to play. Come on, we'll make you feel right at home. Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail. Let's see what lies in store for you. There's so many things to see and do. Summer, winter, spring or fall, you're home in the Rockies as it all. So gear up, get ready to plan your day. The ideas are brewing, you're on your way. The fun is waiting outside your door. Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail.
Hi, and welcome to Good Day Vail. My name is Cece Zach, and I'm the host of this show. Today's episode is one that you do not want to miss the entire episode because it is about a Vail Trailblazer. Matter of fact, she just won the Vail Trailblazer Award. Her name is Marka Moser. And, you know, she has dedicated her life to building different things in our community that benefit the environment, that benefit education, that benefit society in its whole. And her words of wisdom are pearls that everyone should listen to. And she has just been, as I mentioned, the recipient of the 8th Vail Trailblazer Award and actually will be honored on March 28th at Donovan Pavilion. So please stay tuned for this episode of Good Day Vail, Spotlight on a Vail Trailblazer.
Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail.
Hi there, and welcome back to Good Day Vail. Today's episode is an extraordinary one about a trailblazer, and I'm so grateful to have Marka Moser here with us today. And what I love to do in these interviews, Marka, is to have you tell the viewers, why is Vail home for you? How long have you been here? What keeps you here? And is there anything specific about Vail that just makes it call home?
I first came here in 1965 to ski for a week and fell in love with it at that point. My uncle bought a condo, and from that time on I was living in Boulder, and I could come up every weekend that the condo wasn't rented or my uncle wasn't using it, which was quite frequently. And so I became a weekend local, and then in 1970 had the opportunity of moving up here. I was married to Division of Wildlife officer, and he became the officer for this district. And so I was thrilled to be here. I had 2 daughters, and we were all very excited about being here.
Well, I'm very excited that you made that trek many, many years ago. And I wish I had an uncle like you did that had a place here when I was growing up. So what a great entree into the Vail Valley. Now, you recently received the Vail Trailblazer Award, and I just, congratulations to you. And everything.
Thank you.
Everything I've read and people I've talked to have just said that you are just an extraordinary inspiration for the Vail Valley. And I know that it all starts with passions. So tell us a little bit about your life passions.
Well, I would say environment is a big one for me, and it still remains so, as we need to keep our environment safe to be able to live anywhere. And then family and children. So those are the main things that I sort of focused on while I was here. And as far as the environment, because Vail was a very small community at that time, there was very little in the way of recycling. So we started that. We started cleanup days. And then we had to start fighting the Denver Water Board, who was wanting to take all of the waters from every stream that runs into the Gore Valley. The Denver Water Board owns Piney Lake, and they wanted to dam up Piney Lake and then divert all of that water to Denver.
Oh my goodness, I can't even think. I mean, it's such a beautiful lake too. Just to dam it up, it aesthetically would ruin it, much less divert the water.
Well, and I think that, you know, probably is no longer a valid concern just because the diversions have become so expensive. But we're still fighting. We fought for 20 years to keep Homestake 2 from being developed, and we thought we had that one won.
And where is Homestake 2?
Homestake is a valley that is that you reach. It's between Redcliffe and Camp Hale.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful valley, and it has a lot of trailheads that go into the Holy Cross Wilderness area. And that is a Colorado Springs and Aurora diversion project, which we thought was dead in the water because it was so expensive, but now they're trying to get it again. So we're rekindling that fight again.
So when you say we, who is the organization that you're working with to help rekindle this fight?
Well, statewide organizations now are going into this fight. We had our own, it was the Holy Cross Wilderness Defense Fund, and then there was the Eagle Piney Water Protection District, and it was, those were both sort of local entities that were fighting it. Now it's become statewide and almost nationwide.
Okay.
What they've discovered, it's kind of an interesting story, but in the Homestake Valley are fens, which is something relatively newly discovered, but it's a almost a sponge-like wetlands that stores water. It's a natural reservoir underwater. I mean, under the surface of the earth. And it's extremely valuable. It's taken millions of years for them to form, so it's not the kind of wetlands that can just be destroyed and then you create another wetland someplace else to mitigate that. So this is why we're, there's a whole organizations now, including Sierra Club and other national organizations that are helping to fight this one.
So if I could be so bold as to say, is thanks to your contributions many years ago with the different organizations that you mentioned, you have brought it to statewide attention, in which they have found the need to take ownership of it in order to protect from Aurora stealing the water from us today. Is that correct?
Well, yes, sort of. I mean, it was... there were several organizations statewide too that were fighting
at the same time.
It was, and we were, I became interested in it and became sort of a part of it, and that was, along with, recycling, cleanup days, and all of those kinds of things. As I said, the environment is very special to me, and one of the things that I was a part of that I feel very, very strongly about is the Eagle River Preserve in Edwards.
Oh, yes.
It's 72 acres of prime, beautiful land. You said you've been down there with your dog.
I have with my dog. It is spectacular. And for our viewers, I just want you to know that Marka was leading the charge in creating a preserve and protecting that.
Well, I followed. There were other people that were sort of leading the charge.
Oh, you're being humble.
But I became part of a citizens group that was reviewing all of this and then helping to raise the funds. Eagle County contributed. It was a $12 million buy to get the land into open space, and it's protected in perpetuity, so it can never be developed.
And as we were preparing, you mentioned that $6 million came from the government, but you had to raise, your citizens had to raise an additional $6 million to match it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, the Vail Valley Foundation was really, took the lead in that, but there were many of us that would go out and solicit funds from just local people, and we were at a lot of farmers markets in the summer. We would have a booth there and explain what we were trying to do, and people would contribute $20, and some would take the information and might send a check for $1,000.
Wow.
But it is something that I feel very, very pleased that we were able to save that. 72 acres that would have been developed.
Wow. And viewers, again, if you've never gone down to the preserve, it's right next to the gas house. It is worth taking a walk with your dog, your family, yourself, meditate, whatever. It is spectacular. So that's one of your passions. You have many passions. And I know you had mentioned your family as another. And so education has been a huge component of your life. Maybe you could briefly just tell us how you got involved with education.
Well, I went back to school. That's why I was living in Boulder, and got my degree in education. So when I came up here, I became very involved in the schools. I had 2 children that were going there, and it was a one-room country school, which is really pretty unique in this day and age. You know, in 1970, to have your children in a one-room country school that was over the what is now, it was part of the hospital, and.
The hospital in Vail.
In Vail,
okay.
But it was
so
very
it was right
small
in the
at
village.
that time.
Yep.
It was right
Yep.
in the village. And so I became involved in that, and was a substitute teacher, and helped when we had the one-room school. There were 3 teachers that were there, but we didn't have physical education or arts and music, and so we tried to work with local people here that had some of those skills to bring them in to the schools, and so that the kids would have the opportunity to learn games. And I know one father who would take a bunch of the boys down to Minturn, where there was a gymnasium, so that he could teach them basketball skills and things like that.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
that's
so
lovely.
it was, and then, you know, musicians would come in and, you know, sing with the kids and things like that. But it was very, very special.
So on that note, we're going to take a quick station break. And Marka, I just want to thank you. To viewers, Marka is just an extraordinary inspiration for our Valley in so many different ways. So please stay tuned when we come back to the next segment of Good Day Vail for this episode, because we're going to talk about how Marka has really made that influence. We've heard a little bit about our accomplishments, but I want you all to learn about how we all could be an inspiration for the Vail Valley. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Good day, Vail. Good day, Vail.
Hi, and welcome back to Good Day Vail. This episode is a spotlight on the Vail Trailblazer, Marka Moser. So, Marka, as we were discussing before, the key to your success of impact in the Valley and receiving this award really started with your passions. We talked about the environment, we talked a little bit about education, but I'd like our viewers to learn more about some of the accomplishments that you had around education. I know the ABC School and some other nonprofit focus, so please tell our viewers about some of those things that you're so passionate about around education.
Well, when I first moved here, I didn't have young children. I had older children that were in school, but I had 2 boys, and so there was a preschool that started at Meadow Mountain. It was in the lodge at Meadow Mountain, but that was going to be torn down. So we needed to find another school location. We went to the town of Vail, and they were able to supply a space, and I think we rented it for $1 a year or something of that nature.
And what year was this again?
That would have probably been in 1970, probably 74, 75, something like that.
So
I'm not sure
that long
exactly.
ago, right.
And we had a wonderful director whose husband was a contractor, but we were able to buy a modular bank building that was not being used any longer, and we were able to move it by trailer onto the site, which had a downstairs, you know, so they'd put a basement into it, so that would be adequate enough for probably about 40 children. And so we got that going, and it was interesting because one other woman who was on the board with me at the time, she and I signed the mortgage, but we forgot about it until about 20 years later when it was paid off. And both of us were appalled that we had, I'm not sure how much it was, but we had signed
A mortgage?
a mortgage for this preschool. But
Well,
anyway,
and may I note, you said another woman too, so let's hear it for women spearheading this type of initiative.
well,
I know
because-
you didn't want to be on the mortgage, but it's nice to see that the banks allowed it back then.
Well, it was interesting that they did, and I think both of us were moms that had young children that needed preschool.
Yeah,
And so
and
that's
you're-
why we got involved. And then Buddy Warner League was in existence when I moved up here, and so my daughters immediately were involved in that, and that was dear to my heart because I had met Buddy Warner when he was working on Ski Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, and I was a lifeguard at the hotel, and we were in the employees' cafeteria together, and that's where I first met him. So I knew the whole story about him and how he had been killed in an avalanche, and his whole demeanor was sportsmanship, and so
Versus performance or winning.
exactly,
Yeah.
winning was sort of secondary to being a good sport, and
Right.
so the program is still alive today, and it's exciting because both of my grandchildren, who are now 11 and 13, and are in the program, and my son is a volunteer coach.
Oh, that just
So
that warms my heart.
And I was a volunteer coach as well as running the program a couple of different times. So those are things that I feel very strongly about. We did also, in the late 80s, it came to my attention, and I was aware of it myself, but there was a lot of drugs coming into the valley other than alcohol and probably pot at that time. But so I did organize a program with Charlie Wick, who was with the town of Vail, and the town of Vail was a big sponsor for that. And we were quite successful in bringing together all the different entities in the valley that would be focusing on children and the message that was being given to them. And so I feel very strongly about that, and a lot of it is still in place today in the schools. So
I am so grateful that you've done that. And what comes to mind, and actually you brought it up when we were preparing for the interview, was the ads that were on TV. There was a frying pan, and someone cracked an egg and put it on the frying pan, and it says, you know, this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs. And you had mentioned that. That was the type of message you were trying to get through to the children at that time, and I'm just so grateful that you did that, and that it's continuing to be brought up and you know, educating today's children.
there's still a lot of problems in that direction, but I think that the schools still carry on. Many of them Red Ribbon Week and bring attention to it, but we had, you know, all of the law enforcement, the churches and businesses and school administration, school teachers, students. We had all the students involved in a huge program, and many of those students that were in it when I was sort of directing it are still, I consider them still good friends.
Oh, that's delightful.
Which is really nice as they've grown into adulthood.
Now, when you mentioned all of those different groups of stakeholders that needed to be involved to make this happen, and it seems like you also did this with every other passion project that you have, is that you were the catalyst in all of this and a pioneer, which, you know, my understanding led to you receiving the Vail Trailblazer Award. So what are some things that you do that our viewers should know about as it relates to trailblazing new things? Because we need more people, we need more women like you in this world. And I would love for you to share with our viewers, what are some of the things that you do or that you would hope that you see, you know, people taking forward and trailblazing in Vail right now?
Well, I think there's still a lot to do, and there will always be a lot to do. But I think if you are new to the community and you know what your own passions are, there just are so many outlets for people to become involved. If you like education, there's the Literacy Project. If you like volunteering, I mean, we had the rummage sale, which was a huge, brought all the communities together because the people that were volunteering came and they met people, and it was people from out of town, but it was held in Minturn. And that brought loads of people, I think, into a volunteer realm that might not have ever done a whole lot of volunteering. And they were able to give their money. The money we raised went back to the nonprofit that person was working for.
Oh,
so
lovely.
it was really,
Yeah.
it sort of comes full circle in that way. So it helped a lot of local, it helped probably about 40 or 50 nonprofit organizations. And, but there's a lot of need, and I think newcomers to the Valley, it's really a good way to become involved and meet people quickly.
Yeah.
Because the first summer I moved here in July 1st, and they were working on this rummage sale probably about 3 weeks later, and it was very small at that point. It was, one little tiny room in a schoolhouse, and that, people were donating their goods, and then everybody came to buy. But it became a really $1 million project in the later days of that.
Well, you're making me think of right now is that people are always looking for ways to volunteer or to give back to the community, and I've noticed that people really get into the arts and the dance, and there's a wide variety of passions that people have in that arena. But what I love about your story is it's about humanity. The passions that you have chosen and that you have trailblazed and pioneered through this valley have really been about advancing the humanitarian efforts of the valley. And that's what I just got just now talking to you. That is extraordinary. And I really hope viewers see that opportunity. I mean, one of the things that I've learned in these interviews is that our minority population is growing, and in a very short period of time will be at the same level, 50-50 level. And those are the people that are servicing our county. And we really need to think about how do we help them be part of the community. They are part of the community, but how do we make it easier for them? So I thank you so much for sharing all of this, because it's giving me inspiration about where I would like to spend my time. And as we close out this episode, there is one wonderful happy fact that I just read about you, is that you are a very prominent hockey player. So, and just briefly tell us about that part of your life.
Well, I did do a lot of things that I realized that if I had not moved here, I probably never would have been a part of. But my 2 sons were playing hockey, and I know how much they enjoyed it. And so we started out really on the pond at the golf course that Ben Kruger was making into, he was plowing it and keeping it free of snow so that we could. Yeah. And so there was just a bunch of women that got hockey sticks and on our figure skates, but then we morphed into a whole hockey program for women.
That's extraordinary. And how many years did you play?
Probably off and on for almost 20 years, yeah, because I was 65 when I finally decided that I didn't want to get shoved into the boards and break a hip or something. So.
Well, just another example of you trailblazing the way as a female hockey player. And with that, I just, from Good Day Vail to you, I just want to thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your words. And that's a wrap for us today at Good Day Vail. And I just hope it brings inspiration. And as Marka has said, it's not all about her, it really is about the community. But let me tell you something, this woman is a trailblazer in every way and a catalyst to make things happen and change what needs to be changed. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon on the next episode of Good Day Vail.
On your way, the fun is waiting outside your door. Good day, Vail.